Straight ahead on 12 News, a high-wire act in Rogers.
It is risky, but I'd say we're well trained.
Then, a sweet story at the Minnesota State Fair.
Even the judges or the panel are saying, wow, we haven't seen honey like this. And it's like, where do you live? We said Maple Grove, and where are the bees? Maple Grove. They go, no way.
Meet the top beekeepers from Maple Grove. But first, firefighters who had to swarm a Maple Grove neighborhood. 12 News starts right now. Hello and thanks for joining us. We start in Maple Grove, where a family is picking up the pieces from a devastating house fire.
Yeah, it happened Wednesday night in the 7700 block of Garland Lane. When firefighters arrived, the front of the house was fully engulfed. More than 70 Maple Grove firefighters responded to the call. One resident was home at the time and heard noise, thinking at first it was something else.
One of the residents was home at the time of the fire, heard glass breaking, and thought it was a burglary. Ran out the back of the house, went to the neighbors, and they came over to investigate and found the fire. They attempted to fight the fire with fire extinguishers, but it was too big.
The Maple Grove Fire Chief Scott Anderson says the fire got big very fast at the home, which was just built in 2010. He believes the fire started in the garage, but the cause remains under investigation.
In Robbinsdale, we can report no demolition can happen at the Terrace Theater for at least 2 weeks. That's due to a delay in a lawsuit involving the 1950s-era theater. The lawsuit filed by the Friends of the Terrace aims to stop the property owner from demolishing the theater through a temporary restraining order, also known as a TRO. In Hennepin County Court, attorneys on both sides asked for more time to review the case. The judge granted the request, and the next hearing will be September 13th.
Anytime we buy for the Terrace is a step in the right direction. It gives us a chance to show that there are other opportunities here. Is 2 weeks enough? No, obviously not. We're certainly hoping that the court's going to grant the TRO and give us much more time with the Terrace.
Robbinsdale city officials remain in discussions to bring a Hy-Vee grocery store to the theater site.
A Brooklyn Park man is due back in court next month, accused of pointing a gun at another man's head. According to the criminal complaint, Dwayne Adams was somehow involved in a fight outside the downtown Minneapolis police station. Adams, who has a permit to carry, told police he pulled out his gun when another person punched him. A police officer spotted Adams with the gun chasing after another man. Adams is charged with terroristic threats and second-degree assault. Last month, powerful storms caused significant damage in the Twin Cities.
Now, one of the areas hardest hit was Rogers, where transmission lines were damaged. As Eric Nelson found out, repairs to these lines are still going on and even involve some work in the midair.
Back in July, straight-line winds toppled power lines in Rogers as storms battered the Twin Cities.
It takes a significant storm to knock something of this size down.
Xcel Energy immediately went into repair mode and began replacing 8 miles of high-voltage transmission lines.
It's a fairly large project. There's a lot of work, a lot of moving wheels, a lot of people. So, I mean, it's one of the bigger transmission lines or voltages out here in Minnesota.
These lines are like the interstate highways for carrying electricity.
Part of this process looks more like a Hollywood movie stunt.
It is risky, but I'd say we're well trained.
It involves a helicopter and workers in a bucket truck who use a thread-the-needle technique to install a lead line.
They fly over, they hook it onto the structure, disconnect in the air. Just the helicopter does it all. And then he gets his line on the other side of the structure, grabs back onto it, continues on.
The copter is a huge part of this rebuild.
Saves a lot of time and a lot of manpower. We don't have to really shut down roads for as long.
This particular line that we're rebuilding first is coming from Monticello, from our nuclear plant, going into Elm Creek, so it feeds the Twin Cities.
This aerial show is dramatic and has an element of danger, which is why safety is of paramount importance.
Everybody's being real diligent about that, and morning tailgates, if you have questions, you ask. If you don't know, you get help or you ask.
In Rogers, I'm Eric Nelson, Channel 12 News.
A crew of 40 is working on the transmission lines, and Xcel Energy says the project should be finished in November.
A life-saving drug is getting so expensive it might be difficult to get it in the hands of those who need it. The drug Naloxone can reverse the effects of a heroin overdose. The sheriff's office and other first responders carry it with them. But prices for the drug have dramatically increased. In one case, a Naloxone injector product went from $750 to $3,700. A Brooklyn Center lawmaker says nonprofits that provide most of the drug will feel the impact the most.
They're raising money. These are mothers or fiancés or whatever who've lost family members who are raising money to distribute naloxone out into the community. And of course their budgets are being pinched considerably. They're not sure they're going to be able to continue to provide it to all the emergency rooms and treatment centers, needle exchange places and stuff that they have been.
Senator Chris Eaton hopes public pressure and an effort in Congress to make the drug available without a prescription will help bring down the price.
Local florists are showing off their creative handiworks at the Minnesota State Fair.
This year's theme is called Color Your World, and 12 News reporter Sonia Goins goes in the garden now to show us how Bachman's made good use of the color purple.
The rotunda of the horticultural building is bursting with color.
Bachman's couldn't resist to use our signature color, purple.
8 florists are featured, including Bachman's. They went with a purple woodland fairy theme.
So basically we have a nice balance of indoor green and blooming plants. We have plants that you can find in your garden blooming this time of year.
This display has been in the works for months.
I like the color palette, the purples, reds, blues, and it just reminds me of something tropical.
A very unique display is featured in the middle.
Here we have kokedama, which translates to mossball. So these are indoor plants that are living in clay soil surrounded by moss.
A lot of fairgoers are asking about this plant.
This is actually a permanent stem that is a lupine, so great purple flower that's usually found out as a perennial in a lot of gardens.
The main attraction is the whimsical fairy.
The wings are just made of wooden twine, and then she is adorned in faux fern.
It's kind of like Project Runway, like what you could build out of flowers. So I love the creativity of the dress and the wings and the dragonflies.
A babbling brook and other cool colors create a sense of serenity at a sometimes hectic state fair.
This is my favorite spot when I come to the fair, really, see what people have done. So
at the Minnesota State Fair, Sonia Goins, 12 News.
Bachman says they hope their display will inspire others to be creative with plants and flowers. The exhibit is sponsored by the Minnesota State Florist Association.
And coming up, we head back to the State Fair for a sweet story.
And later in sports, 2 local women solidify their role as leaders for the Gopher hockey team.
But first, free air conditioning at the fair. It'll be cool and comfortable on Friday. We'll be right back. Welcome back. Are you interested in learning more about the men and women who protect and serve? Residents of Crystal, New Hope, and Robbinsdale can participate in a Citizens Police Academy. It starts next month, and Robbinsdale police say they still have a handful of spots open for those who are interested. Classes run for 6 weeks and are held on Thursday evenings. You must be 18 years of age and pass a background check to participate. Details can be found on the City of Robbinsdale's website.
If you live in Maple Grove, there's a good chance your flowers are pollinated by a bee from a Maple Grove honey farm.
And not just any honey farm, but one of the best in the state. Reporter Shannon Slatton has their sweet story from the Minnesota State Fair.
Opening day at the State Fair is about what to see and do, the buzz over what's new, and when it's time to sample an old favorite. But in one corner, the hustle dies down and Minnesota's sweetest shines.
We get about 700 or 800 entries a typical year.
The best honey in the state is here.
It was a very competitive contest this year.
Competing in color, clarity, and consistency, criteria that Sandy DeShannon knows all too well.
One of our most intense competitors, actually. The real key to her success is she's She's extremely detail-oriented.
She's one of the queen bees of Minnesota honey, and she's tough to beat.
In the last 5 years, I've been the sweepstakes winner for Minnesota. The competition is fierce, and everyone does just a fabulous job.
She's entered the contest yet again.
We'll just hope for the best.
Okay.
Bringing her honey from the unlikeliest of places.
Here comes the bee people.
We happen to be located right in the middle of Maple Grove, which is very strange to think about.
Sandy and her husband Ken have a 15-acre farm in the heart of Maple Grove, bordered by parks and a grove of basswood trees.
Basswood is one of the lighter flowers for nectar that it creates a very much of a lighter shade of honey.
The perfect place, they thought, to start beekeeping.
Ken's and my philosophy has always been, when was the last time you did something for the first time?
There's a lot of bees here.
So a honey farm in the middle of a suburb.
The thing is that bees are also quiet if you're quiet.
A quiet operation that supplies the Northwest Metro with local honey.
See how busy they are? That's why they're called busy as bees.
And the state fair with a champion.
Even the judges or the panel are saying, wow, we haven't seen honey like this. And it's like, where do you live? We said Maple Grove, and where are the bees? Maple Grove. They go, no way.
Sandy's honey is ready to win again.
I think she'll win again. I really do. So.
We'll find out next Thursday.
Yeah. Yeah, no, she'll win.
This year we had 4 or 5 competitors now that were very close.
On opening day, there are several ribbons for Sandy.
This is a very interesting year because we kind of had a little bit of an upset.
But there's a new sweepstakes winner.
There's a number of other beekeepers now who are starting to learn and are kind of picking up the techniques and putting the time into it.
We're always trying to find new things to do.
You could say the DeShannons have raised the bar on honey, while showing that it's the hobby, not the ribbons, that truly are the sweetest thing.
It makes the competition a lot more interesting.
At the Minnesota State Fair, Shannon Slatton, 12 News.
And here is an insider tip. If you don't want to deal with the crowds at the Minnesota State Fair, you can check out the DeShannon's honey almost every week at the Maple Grove Farmers Market.
Including the honeycomb. I remember eating this stuff when I was a kid. That's great.
And it sounds like they're raising the bar on competition.
Yeah, it looks great. But coming up, art you have to seed to believe.
But first, we head back to training camp for a look at the Hopkins Royals football team. Sports is up next.
Jason Melillo now with sports. Pretty exciting time. We've got a week till the start of football season, so training camps are ramping up.
They are, yeah. And a lot of teams have their scrimmages this week, so they get to hit somebody else, which they always say they like. So that's a good thing. With a good mix of returning players and young talent, the Hopkins football team is optimistic for the 2016 season. Here's a look at the Royals on today's training camp report. The Hopkins football team always puts a lot of good athletes on the field, and the 2016 Royals are eager to see what they can do.
We've got a new group of kids that are seniors, and they want to take leadership and ownership of the team, and we kind of feel like it's a new team, a new season.
Hopkins should have a good offensive line led by Andrew Myers and Bennett Van Dellen. Morgan Holmes will be the starting quarterback, and he should have a deep well of weapons led by running back Deion Campbell and wide receiver Malik Lofton.
It's no shocker. We don't have a lot of size, but we do have a lot of speed. So we keep defenses guessing, and make it hard for us to guard us and stuff like that. So
we feel like we need to spread it out and make people run with us and try to get the big guys tired and then try to even things up that way.
On defense, senior linebacker Boye Mafe will lead a group that will make up for a lack of size with speed and smarts.
We're going to have a lot of underweighted or smaller corners, linebackers, and safeties. So this year we're going to use our speed, we're going to use our intelligence, we're going to have to do a lot of technique and tackling, and just do all the right little things right.
As a rule, head coach Jonathan Hartog doesn't talk about the previous season, but Royal players definitely remember last year's 3-7 record, and they're aiming to do better this fall. And here's the lowdown on the Royals. They were 3-7 last fall. Jonathan Hartog begins his 13th season as Royals head coach. 4 starters back on offense, 6 on defense. The Royals open at Coon Rapids next Thursday night. 2 local women will wear the A for the Gopher hockey team this winter. Danny Cameronese and Kate Schipper were recently named assistant captains for their senior year at Minnesota. Both had outstanding junior seasons, with Cameronese scoring 33 goals and 68 points, Schipper notching 14 goals and 40 points. Schipper is from Brooklyn Park and was a standout player at the Breck School, while Plymouth native Cameronese started at Blake, winning the Miss Hockey Award as a high school senior. Well, understanding more about the type of fish you're trying to catch and where they feed can be a big help the next time you're on the lake. Here's Terry Tuma with this week's Channel 12 fishing tip.
One of the most important factors in fishing success today is understanding the species of fish that you're pursuing. You know, when you get a fish, always ask yourself, what are they doing there? Why are they there? And what are they eating? Understanding the food source is extremely important for us as far as fishing success. And then too, we have to relate to then, and the fish are telling us that when you market with your electronics and so forth, is we have to understand where these baits and lures are, meaning depth, vibration, sight, noise, taste. But we have to remember that our lures and our baits have to be in that strike window, into that window of opportunity for those fish to eat. It's extremely important. Always remember, you heard me say this in the past, no food, no fish. If we can understand these areas, it is going to help us in catching fish. What we do need to relate to, though, is, you know, scent is the factor, but taste really isn't a factor until that fish mouths the bait. And if it's positive, it's going to eat it. If it doesn't taste quite right, it will eject it or reject it immediately. That's something we have to be in touch with. Give it a try, practice understanding a fish. You are going to catch more fish.
Thank you, Terry. Understanding the fish, that's the key to catching
There you
fish.
go.
You got to think like it.
Thanks, Jason. Still ahead, how Maple Grove Park is being turned into an art project.
And also we'll tell you how several local residents have fairgoers wondering how'd they do that. We'll be right back.
There's a place in Maple Grove you can go to simply get away from it all.
Oh, now a local resident is paying for an art project to encourage more people to use Eagle Lake Regional Park. A dirt road takes you out to a quiet point at the center of the lake. Right now it's simply known as The Point. But a local resident wants to give the area an identity with a work of art. He and his employer are paying for a seating area that will look out over the lake. It'll be covered with steel structures to simulate the layered vegetation in a forest.
I want people to be more inspired by the piece, you know, to sit and obviously watch the lake and nature, but it is an interesting sculptural piece as well that will hopefully, you know, inspire the youth of the neighborhood, or, you know, any generation really.
The sculpture is meant to give you a sense of protection while connecting you to the landscape as well, and it should be installed next spring. Well, finally, something you have to seed to believe.
Check out these works of art made out of seeds. You can find them at the Horticulture Building at the State Fair. Several people from the Northwest Metro were highlighted in the display, including Katie Butler of Robbinsdale for her A Butterfly art piece. She was awarded a blue ribbon. Others earning recognition include Jordan Lockman and Elizabeth Butler, both of Maple Grove. One of many things to check out over there.
It takes a lot of patience, I
Yes,
think, to
I
put
think
those
so.
things together.
That does it for us. Thanks so much for joining us.
And we'll see you back here again on Friday, starting at 4.